In a sharp response to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's remarks on the killing of women, children and babies in Gaza, Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu has said that it is Hamas and not Israel that should be held accountable for the same. Trudeau's remarks on the Gaza Strip situation came amid growing concerns globally on the situation in the densely populated piece of land. Trudeau urged the government of Israel to exercise maximum restraint and said that the world is watching. He added that the killing of women, children and babies must be stopped. Responding to this, Netanyahu said that it is Hamas and not Israel that needs to be held responsible for committing a double war crime. Netanyahu also added that forces of civilization must be backing Israel in defeating Hamas's barbarism. Let us in fact listen in to what Trudeau had to say.
Tragedy that is unfolding in Gaza is heart-wrenching, especially the suffering we see in and around the Al-Shifa hospital. I have been clear that the price of justice cannot be the continued suffering of all Palestinian civilians. Even wars have rules. All innocent life is equal in worth, Israeli and Palestinian. I urge the government of Israel to exercise maximum restraint.
So there you heard it. Let's quickly move across to my colleague Akshat Gupta, who's with us on the broadcast. Akshat, if you can take our viewers through Israel's exact response to Justin Trudeau.
Well, yes, to Justin Trudeau's remarks on the Gaza Strip situation have come amid growing concern globally on the situation in the Gaza, and Israel's war against Hamas has already claimed over 11,000 lives in Gaza and displaced over 1.5 million people. Well, in a sharp response to Trudeau's remark on the killing of women, children and babies in Gaza, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, said that it is Hamas and not Israel that should be held accountable. And he also referred to the attacks on October 7, the unprecedented attacks, and said that it is not Israel that is deliberately targeting civilians, but Hamas that beheaded, burned and massacred civilians in the worst horrors perpetrated on Jews since the Holocaust. He also said that when Israel provides civilians in Gaza humanitarian corridors and safe zones, Hamas prevents them from leaving at gunpoint. And 3 out of 39 premature babies at Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital died after the facility ran out of fuel due to power generators powering incubators. And if I just tell you, the remarks by Trudeau came when, of course, when the situation is quite tense in the Gaza, and the Canadian Prime Minister also said that Hamas needed to stop using Palestinians as human shields and should release the Israeli hostages whom they have held as captives.
Okay, Akshay, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. We also bring in some more news from Israel, where the Israeli Defense Forces, remember, have entered the premises of the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza, where they claim that Hamas terrorists have an underground network in the hospital. The US has now released a statement and said that the hospitals and patients need to be protected during this operation by Israeli troops. Mr. Sanjeev Srivastava with us on the broadcast. Mr. Srivastava, Trudeau on the one hand calling an end to the killing of women, of children and of babies in Gaza, and the US not entirely asking Israel to stop the operations, but asking them to be very careful and ensure that patients in the Al-Shifa hospital continue to be protected during the Israeli operations.
Well, Devika, first of all, very good morning to you. Good morning to all the viewers. You know, if you look at the remarks of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, I think he appears to be criticizing Israel, and he is in a way kind of put a blame on Israel, that Israel is killing children, Israel is carrying out this kind of attacks on the civilians, which is not true. You know, Israel is a professional army. Israel is a responsible nation. And Israel is fighting a war against terrorism at this point of time. And I think Israel is moving forward with these operations already with this fact in mind that they will have to follow the international humanitarian laws. They will have to follow the various procedures laid out for any professional army to whenever they are in a war zone. I think that kind of expectation we can have from Israel, and Israel is maintaining that we are doing. But the problem is in the Gaza is that Hamas is not allowing civilians to be relocated to the safer areas. Israel has given time and again warnings and alert and suggestions, etc., etc. But Hamas is preventing those civilians on gunpoint to remain in the northern Gaza, and that is why. And also they are putting women and children in harm's way. Whenever such strikes are about to be happening, and Israeli reports are suggesting that they spread some leaflets, some etc., etc. So various ways Israel gives them information to the civilians that they should relocate them because they are coming to operate here. But in this situation, Hamas prevents them not to go to the safer areas. So in that process, Hamas has done a very cowardly act by putting women and children and elderly people in a harm's way as human shield to protect themselves. So because of those kind of situations and Hamas's cowardly act, the civilians have been killed. But despite this kind of killings, Israel is very much keeping this fact in mind that they will have to take care of the humanitarian crisis. And so that's why the Justin Trudeau's remarks with regard to Israel is not true. And when it comes to the practicing of those values which Justin Trudeau time and again talks about, I think he is failing because his words cannot be taken seriously. And obviously, when it comes to taking action against terrorism and extremism on the Canadian soil, he's not doing anything. Yeah, I know. Yesterday, just UNHRC review meeting, India has given them Canadian side a recommendation that while they talked about the freedom of expression, but they should improve the various domestic framework of Canada so that this freedom of expression and values like assembly, etc., are not exploited by the terrorist and extremist elements. So I think Justin Trudeau's remarks are not valid, and I think he should be careful making such remarks because it will hamper Israeli operation against terrorism. But yes, with regard to the United States of America's suggestion, I think that's a very pertinent point. I think India is also saying the same thing. Israel will have to follow international humanitarian laws. Israel will have to minimize the collateral damages despite the fact that they are putting civilians on harm's way as human shield. And Israel will have to take all care and caution and should provide them some humanitarian pauses and also some humanitarian corridor so that wherever, in whichever way is possible, they can relocate themselves to the safer areas.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.